Hi. Ooh. Loud. How you doing? Sorry, it's a little bit loud. So I'm here for 20 minutes to tell you a little bit about Atlassian and what we've done in going global, and hopefully give you some lessons from another non-American company that's succeeded in the technology world. My name's Mike. I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of Atlassian. You may have heard of Atlassian. Show of hands, how many people have heard of Atlassian? Okay, a few. You've probably more heard of our products. So we have a suite of products: Jira, Confluence, Bitbucket, SourceTree, and HipChat, which is our fastest growing product at the moment. And what we do is we help product teams in every company around the world to build better software. Everybody from software developers to designers, product managers to the marketing team, and we help them collaborate. We have a lot of very recognizable brands as customers with over 35,000 companies around the world. As an indication of how global we are, we have customers now in about 130 to 135 countries around the world, including quite a lot in Korea, in fact. So you may have heard of some of these Korean brands that we help in a small way to build their great companies. We help Naver, Daum, Kakao, and even more traditional Korean companies like LG build a huge amount of their fridges, televisions, the software inside that using Atlassian tools. But I'm not really here to tell you about our tools. You can have a look at the website to find those. I'm here to give you a few lessons about how we've gone from Australia, which is not particularly well known for technology, and taken our applications to the globe and built a technology company from down in the very bottom corner. We share a lot of things with Korea in terms of our distance from Silicon Valley, the number of other technology firms we have around us, etc. Australia is a little bit more famous for pulling things out of the ground and producing agricultural products. In fact, my hotel, I noticed, has Australian beef on the menu, which is excellent. So we were a little bit up against it. So I thought what I'd do is talk to you guys a little bit about the keys to building a global business from my perspective. Now, I'm going to talk about the things that I think Atlassian does differently that make us unique, rather than the things that are sort of par for the course. So obviously, translation is really important. Communication and collaboration amongst teams. All those things are very important to building a global business. But I try to pull out just 4 simple stories of things that we do differently, or I think make us unique and have helped us to succeed. The first one of those, from my perspective, is the business model. You have to have a business model that can go global from one location. So again, we started in Sydney. We didn't have any money. We couldn't hire people all around the world. Our first copy of Jira was actually sold to an English company, and our second copy was sold to a Swedish company. And we needed a model that would make that make sense. So our sales model has been at the forefront of how enterprises are trying to sell software nowadays. We like to think that the enterprise sales model is evolving very quickly. If you want an interesting statistic that we believe very strongly in, 60% of any purchasing decision for somebody buying a piece of technology is made before any form of engagement with the supplier. And we believe very strongly in that, letting the customer make the choice. So the model is evolving from a high-touch enterprise sales model to more of a customer self-service model. And if you look at traditional enterprise sales, people visit a website, gather some information, sales team gets involved, and there's some money at the end. The problem with this is, as the value goes up, the incentive to have a lot of friction is very high. Why is that important to going global? Well, if you need salespeople to sell your software, we would need to have salespeople in Korea. We would need to have them in Japan. We would need to have them in China, in America, in Mexico. And that's extremely expensive and very hard to scale the organization globally. So what we've done instead is we have much more of a customer self-service model. Much more of a consumer model like Amazon would have for buying a book, for example, except we sell enterprise software to large corporations. So people can go to our site and the product does all the selling of its own. When you compare us with the traditional model, you'll notice it's very different in a lot of different ways. It's a lot cheaper because we don't need to afford a sales force around the world. We sell to the bottom of an organization and move upwards. But fundamentally, when it comes to going global, it's a lot easier for us to scale the organization around the world. We don't actually have any salespeople today in working for Atlassian anywhere in the world. We let the software, the application, partners, the website do the selling for us. Good example of this is a small story is American Airlines. So they're an iconic customer for Atlassian. They were the first customer that ever came to us and never spoke to anybody. They came to the website, they downloaded the software, they installed it, they tried it for a while, they liked it, they gave us a credit card and they bought it. All we got was some money at the end of the chain. And that was way back in 2002. They were our 15th customer and the first person that didn't even send us an email, didn't call us. And the real indicator that our model was something quite different. The second thing that I would like to stress about going global, and perhaps the most important, people tend to forget, they tend to think we started in Australia, hence we just have gone all over the globe from Australia. We have, but we've also put down very localized offices and thought locally about the different places we've been. So I thought our office evolution might be an interesting way to paint the different thought patterns we've had about why we have different places. So as I said, we started in Sydney. Sydney's still our biggest office. As an example, today we have 10 offices around the world and we employ about 1,000 people, about 500 of which are in Sydney. And very early in Atlassian's history, about 2005, we're about 3 years old, we had about 30 employees, about 1,000 customers, and a lot of customers in the United States. And we were told, if we were in the United States, we would sell a lot more software. We were on the wrong end of the world, we had 1,000, we'd have many more customers. So we thought we'd try this. So what we did is, in 2005, end of 2005, I moved to New York for a year. Now we chose New York to test two things. Firstly, whether being in the United States made a difference. Would we get better with the customers? And secondly, we wanted to be close to our biggest customers. At the time, most of our biggest customers were banks. Investment banks largely were on Wall Street, so we went. Now, what happened is we moved that office to San Francisco after about a year. Why did we move it? One, we proved that being close to the customers in terms of time zone made a big difference. So being in New York meant they could email us, we could email them back. They could call us, we could call them back. What was interesting is being close to them geographically so they could walk down the street and come visit us didn't matter at all. So time zone was very important and an early lesson in terms of the responsiveness to customer demands, that being close to them in terms of time zone is important. Now that San Francisco office is again just one of a number that we have around the world, and each of them has a different purpose, and we put it down for a reason, to be global but to also be local and to think locally. So for example, we run support in 5 different offices around the world that cover 45 hours of time in a 24-hour day. So we have 2 support centers running at any given time in the day. Similarly with sales and marketing. We went to San Francisco. Why? Some of the best marketing talent you'll find in technology is in San Francisco. So we went for talent reasons. We have an office in Amsterdam to cover all of Europe in terms of marketing. So different conferences, something like this that's in Germany, for example, very hard to fly from San Francisco or Sydney to get there to man a booth. And Japan is a good example. We started an office in Japan last year. We have about 8 people there now, where it's a very regional specific thing. So they do localization, some Japanese language support, and Japanese language partner support. So each of the offices is there for a different reason. And the same with engineering. Again, we now have 5 engineering centers around the world with different talent and a different purpose for each of those offices. So we have a lot of offices. I thought I'd tell you 2 simple stories about things that have helped us in getting to that global stage and still maintaining the culture that we're famous for and we treat so dearly. So the first is when you're opening a second office, make sure that the first 5 to 10 people you hire are the utmost cultural ambassadors you can have, because that office will take the culture from those 5 to 10 people. So when we started the Amsterdam office, as an example, we moved staff from San Francisco, we moved staff from Sydney, and we made sure to hire a lot of local Dutch staff as well. So we needed the cross-pollination of people who had been in the old offices, as well as people that understood the Dutch culture. We also took some of our cultural mores or customs. For example, here you can see a picture of Josh assembling his own desk from IKEA. We needed people to understand that we didn't have a huge budget. You had to kind of build your own desk, and that was a little bit of the part of how we ran. And we also do a lot of transfers. So here you can see a picture of my co-founder, went over to Amsterdam for a month, spent some time, tried to get his DNA into the organization. So culture is really important and focus on the first 5 to 10 employees. And secondly, what comes out of culture are office traditions. And it's important for offices to have traditions to spread that culture forward. And it doesn't have to be the same tradition in every office. So I thought I'd talk about one tradition they have in the San Francisco office only of Atlassian. So they have a cart that was started by some of the San Franciscan staff, and it's called the beer cart. And what happens is at 4 o'clock on a Friday, this cart gets wheeled around the office, and someone asks you at your desk, do you want a beer, do you want some wine, soft drink, whatever you want. Now what's interesting about this tradition is the cart is always driven by the newest staff member at Atlassian. So you drive that cart until we hire someone else. What that means is it's great for meeting all the rest of your colleagues and similarly for them to get to know you. Because as we're hiring people very fast, getting those traditions, getting the culture across is really, really important. Now the cart has evolved a lot. We have different types of carts now. In fact, right now we have a bike that looks like a rickshaw that they have to ride around because the office has gotten a little bit larger. And we raised about $60 million in 2010. We've raised 210 mil or something in total now. But when we raised that money, obviously the staff were very nervous. We spent 8 years without raising any money, and then we raised a very large round 8 years into the business. And one of the things that gave the staff comfort about the new investors was they, on the first Friday after they invested, they drove the beer cart around. They were the newest staff members, and they were showing the staff that, hey, it's okay, we understand your culture, we understand it's important, and we're here to participate in it, which made a huge difference to the San Francisco staff in terms of being comfortable, and it just kept building that tradition, which is really important. We have traditions in all of the offices that I could talk about, but I think that's really important when you go global that they have a local tradition. The third thing that I want to talk about, which I've been interviewing today with some of the local media, and it's been a popular topic, is winning the global talent war. We have a challenge in Australia, much as you guys do. We don't have a huge depth of experience with technical talent, so we have to really fight globally to get the best engineers, designers, etc., to move to Sydney or to different offices. So we take talent very seriously. We go on campaigns to hire staff. As an example, we're hiring about 2 people a day at the moment, and we take it very, very seriously. So this is one campaign we run, and we try to get a lot of media to people to talk about the Atlassian culture, why it's a great place to work, and try to win from a staff perspective, try to get people to want to work there. The second thing we try to do is we try to get the best graduates from all around the world. So we go to a lot of different countries to recruit graduate engineers, very young people. We fly them to Sydney, and then we try to show them the best time we can. So the Hack House is an example. We have a couple of houses that we rent north of Sydney on the beach, and we put all of the new graduates in there to get to know each other, but to get them to learn the Atlassian culture and get them an experience that they'll then talk to their friends back in the American university and the New Zealand university and say, wow, this company I just joined, they're very different, because that word of mouth in terms of hiring staff is important. The last thing that we do that, hopefully you can see there's a world map there, is we try to import staff from all around the world. Why do we do that? Well, in Australia, as an example, we have a lot of very, very smart engineers. We don't have a lot of very, very experienced engineers. So we try to go to the places around the world that have very experienced engineers and seduce them almost to get them to come and work in Sydney in this example. If we take someone who's been working, for example, at Amazon for 10 years running engineering teams, when they move to Australia, they can take a lot of that experience and expertise and help drive it through all of the different engineers that we have. And that's worth a huge amount to us as a company. We can't, in Australia, find a lot of people who spent 10 years working in building software products, building e-commerce platforms, whatever it is. We just don't have the staff that have done that. So we have to make sure to hire local staff, hire graduates, but also import the best talent that we can into the country and make sure everybody else knows that a part of their job is trying to extract all of the experience that that particular person has. And this is an example of how we did that. In the global financial crisis in 2008, 2009, we knew that in Europe, they were struggling a little bit. And so we put 15 software engineers on a bus, and we drove them around to various European capitals with this slogan that Europe were coming to steal your geeks. So we wanted to convince a lot of Europeans, maybe you were in Spain, maybe the economy wasn't doing so well. We've got beautiful beaches in Sydney, it's a great place to come. Why don't you move to Sydney and do that? We tried to hire 15 engineers as an example in 2 weeks. We hired 24 engineers. and got some really talented folk to move down to Sydney to cross-pollinate into the Australian engineers that were, again, smart but didn't have the experience. So sometimes you have to go to people to get them to come to you. And the last thing I want to talk about that often doesn't get enough airplay, I think, is around culture and around values. So if I look back at the best thing we've done in the last 12 years to enable us to grow the business and to grow it to customers all over the world, to employees all over the world, the best thing we've done is really focus on the culture of the company and specifically the values of the business. And I wanted to talk you through the little exercise that we did to come up with those values and what they mean to us. So I think values really reflect the founders, right? This is a stylized version of myself and my co-founder. We have certain value set that we run the business with intrinsically. You can't change that, right? So the first handful of employees really get that. We interviewed individually about every single employee until we got to maybe 80 or 90 before it became hard to interview every single one. So we had a lot of one-on-one conversations. So the values of the founders naturally transferred into those early employees. The problem was, as we started to grow, you run into a problem where you no longer hire everyone. The organization gets bigger. You no longer have a one-on-one meeting with the founder. So how do you kind of understand how this company is supposed to run and how do you do the right thing by the customer, et cetera? And that gets even more exacerbated when you start scaling the team all over the world. Obviously, we can't go and interview staff in Vietnam or in Tokyo or in Amsterdam. It's very hard to do that. And so you have to rely on values to do that. So we did an exercise back in 2007 by a guy called Jim Collins, very famous business author, who made this statement that really resonated with me, that you can't set core values, you only discover them. So we ran an exercise where we took about half the employees on one side and the higher level, the management, if you like, on the other side. And we got them to write down the 5 things about Atlassian that they didn't want to lose over the next decade. Not things they wanted to be, so not things they aspired to, but things that we already had that we wanted to set in stone that we didn't want to lose. And we also told them to not put down anything that should be a generic human value. Right? When I see corporate values that talk about integrity, that should just be a given. Every employee should have integrity. It shouldn't need to be on a wall or on a corporate value sheet for people to operate with integrity in your business. And so this is some examples of the papers they came up with, and you can see some of the values coming through. It was a very collaborative exercise, but what it forced the employees to do, and this was employees at the time from 3 different offices, was to really decide on what they had in common, and that's helped us as we've moved globally to really take those values and move them outwards. So we came up with a set of values that we're very famous for, and they really are honestly exactly what the employees and the founders wanted them to say. So in terms of the company, we try to make it very open. We're very transparent. We have honest conversations with all of our employees, no matter what country they're in. And different cultural mores make that more and less difficult to have honest conversations about how things are going. We're going to make a lot of difficult decisions. So built with heart and balance is all about saying, as you grow a company, globally, you may have to decide where to put an office. You may have to decide where to shut an office down. You need to make that decision with a lot of balance, right? You need to have a lot of caring, but also a lot of balance. Hard decisions are going to have to get made. Don't blank the customer. Sorry, I'm not sure how that translates into Korean, but it's very important to us to put the customer first. But we didn't want to say good customer service. We wanted to really say it's really, really important to us that we put them at the front of the queue, that we make sure that everything we do in the business, like the sales model in terms of putting friction in front of the customer, right? Not letting them get a demonstration without talking to a salesperson, for example. That's not doing the best thing by them. That's putting barriers in the way. We wanted to get rid of all those barriers. We want to have a lot of fun, play as a team, and it's a team sport. The company that I am lucky enough to work for, we only exist because of the awesome 1,000 people that we have around the world. And be the change you seek is my favorite value. And that's about saying, even as we get bigger and bigger as a company, no matter which office you work in around the world, if you see something that's wrong or something that needs to be changed, it is your responsibility to change it. It is your responsibility to put up your hand and say, this needs to be changed, this needs to be different. And a lot of people will watch something and say, there's some milk spilt there, someone should clean that up. And the next person walks past and says, oh, look, there's some milk over there, and walks off again. We want to hire the employees that will go, oh, there's some milk, let me go get a towel, let me clean it up. Let me make it better for all the other employees. And that's really, really important that we put that down. So I hope that's given you a little bit of a lesson. Again, it's 4 of the values, 4 of the things we've learned over the last decade that I think make Atlassian unique in how we've approached the world. And I don't actually have any time for questions right now. I'm sorry, I'm getting a big flashing light down here. But I'm on the next panel, and I think there'll be some time for questions after that. So thank you very much. Otherwise, I'm around for the next day if you can find me. Love to talk to you. Thank you.